It's booting up right now. My apologies, brother. Okay, let's make sure we don't got no double talk. No double talk. Double talk. No, right now, my apologies, brother. Is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
That
I don't
is.
have.
That is. What's happening, family? Okay, again. We had to start this over because I had some technical difficulties. That I do apologize, but that's all right. Things we make it happen. If you unfamiliar about what Professional Dad, if you're new to what Professional Dad 24/7 is all about, again, this is a platform that I provided, that I created, so that fathers, real fathers, could literally have a conversation about some of the things that we got going on, right? Every father has something going on, right? When our task is to provide and take care of our family, discipline, nurturing, whatever it is that we do, there's an obstacle that we always are up against. And I wanted to create a platform to be able to bring some brothers on live, talk to, put it on the podcast and talk about issues we got going on. Whether or not you're leaving your house, whether or not you're going to your job, whether or not you're dealing with the situations at your job, whether or not you're dealing with your wife, family, significant other, and how you'll raise your kids, whether or not you're a family member. There are so many things that can cause so much stress with us fathers that I wanted to create a platform for therapy for me, right? And this to me is therapy. So it allows me to talk about some of my issues, share some of my experiences with you all so that I'm hoping you can take something away from what we talk about and you don't go through the same situations that I do or some of my guests. With that being said, I'm going to jump right into welcome. I do have a guest tonight, and we may have more fellas get on, but I have a guest tonight, my guy Q Love, out of the neighborhood in which I was raised in, and a great father. Let me definitely introduce you to him and him to y'all, that I've known this guy for since we were kids. And from what we were raised in, the environment, from where we've come from, I can honestly say this man loves his kids, and he has did everything and continues to do the things that he needs to do to make sure that his kids are productive and they are an asset to life. They're an asset to the community. They're an asset to themselves and the family that he's creating. So with that being said, Q Love, are you on there tonight?
Yeah, what's up, brother? Thank you for the nice words, brother.
Absolutely,
Thank you, brother.
absolutely,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
absolutely. So I always start off with, what does professional dad mean to you?
Well, I can only speak for myself, but for me, it means setting an example. Every day you have to set an example of what a positive man is. I mean, that's in your home, the workforce, uh, in your community, all of the above. You just have to set that example. Especially as a black man. I, as a black man, you have to set that example. You know, and as a father, so that means to me, I can only say for me, like my sons, they never witnessed me, smoking, drinking. I've never drunk alcohol in front of my sons. I've never uh, smoked any weed. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never stood on the street corner. My pants, never been sagging to my knees. I never set that example for my son. So, I mean, that's what it means to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's huge, man. That's huge because a lot of those characters, traits that we have, we definitely want to instill into our kids. And that's how I like to start off the show, man, because there's no one perspective on what professional dad means to any, just everybody. To me, again, if you go back and listen to what I always say, professional dad, it's just like an athlete, right? You are growing and you continue to grow to be the best at what you can do. You see my hand, I am a witness witness that I am not a professional dad, but I am striving to become one, right? And every day is a learning day. Every day is something new that I have to better myself to instill into the kids that I raise. So with that being said, that's my take on professional dad. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's a task where there's some way that we can teach our young ones something of life lessons and skills that'll definitely help them that will when we go, if that makes sense. So with that being said, well, what's on your mind today? What this
Also,
is a community conversation, man. We just talk. What's on your mind today?
so I also want to mention to add on to that, it's a badge of honor to be a father. I wouldn't give that up for, I would say, $1 billion, $1 million. I wouldn't give that up, man. I mean, it's an honor to be a father. You know, it's truly an honor, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if you're volume down, if you can turn that up a little bit where I can hear you a little louder. That'd be good. Um,
Okay, is that better?
that's good. That's good, brother. That's good. That's good. So, you know what? I know we were talking earlier, and we were talking about definitely got to give you some applause because you do have kids that are college bound, and the experience. How does that feel that your kids is going to college in college? What is that experience like? Because we got a lot of kids that's not going to college. Got a lot of parents that wishing, hoping, and all that. How does that feel?
I mean, for me, it was the greatest feeling of my life, to be able to take my son, back to a HBCU. Just that experience alone, to be able to take your son to college and to see all the other positive fathers and mothers, a lot of folks who represent what I represent, especially from the Black community, going back, to a HBCU, which is a historic Black college university. And man, it was an experience that I would never forget.
Hmm,
It was beautiful, man. I mean, it was just so many Black folks, man, that just, we all have one common goal, and that goal is to make sure that our kids are going to be successful, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
understand.
So
Understand.
we don't really see that right here in the Bay Area or San Francisco, or wherever you're from. We don't really see that positivity. But going back to like my son, he goes to Clark, so you're able to go back, and then there's Clark, Morehouse, and Spelman, and you're able to see all these Black folks just coming together, man. It was like, man, it was something
Absolutely.
I've never witnessed before. So
That's a wonderful feeling. But let me before you go, before I ask a question about your journey up there, while you done drove your son up there, took him back to Clark, the steps before college, like what was that like for you? What types of hiccups did you have? Right, because it's a struggle, right? It's statistics show that we don't have a large percentage of brothers going to school, right? I'm gonna research that to put that out there. But it's a badge of honor, right, to be a father in one. That's absolute. But it's almost like we're praised for a kid doing what they're supposed to do, right? If that's the next step, it is what it is. But because so little of us are having that accomplishment, if you will, it seemed like, oh yeah, we did a great. I like to say, hey, look, that's just part of the job. That's what you do as a kid, right? So tell me about that journey beforehand. How difficult was it, or how easy was it with your child going up to that point? Did he want to go to college?
well, for me, Spunk, growing up in a single parent home, where my mother, what an awesome woman. She raised 7 kids. At the age of 28 years old, she had 7 kids. And, my mom, man, she was our mother. She was our father. She was our grandmother. She was our auntie. She was our uncle. She was everything all in one, if that makes sense. So to have an example like that in your home, where my mother, she volunteered in the school, she walked us to the bus stop, you know, uh, She let us know, you can be, you can be from, you can be from the quote unquote what some people would call the hood or the ghetto, but she always reminded us that the ghetto was not going to be in us when we left the house. Did that make sense?
That
That
makes a
that
lot of
that,
sense.
that, that
Makes a lot of
that you
sense.
wasn't going to carry that ghetto mentality outside of this community, and in the community you wasn't going to be like everybody else. So she had rules in the house. So I say all that to say, when I became a father, I just followed a lot of steps that my mom had did. I volunteered in everything my sons did, brother, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So I can give you like an example. Last year, my son was in the 12th grade, and this was my last back to school night. And my son has said, he said, Dad, you don't need to go to back to school night. And I looked him in his face and I said, I'm going to finish the way I started. So that means that when he was in preschool, I went to back to school night. When he was all the way through elementary, I went to every single back to school night, every parent teacher conference, anything that had to do with my sons. I never missed nothing, nothing. I didn't miss nothing. Anytime they called me, I was there. I showed up. I didn't worry about what the mother did, what she didn't do. I did my part. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you about that, right? In your what I call, you being present. You know what I'm saying? What what drawback or were people surprised that you were so involved?
Well, see, I think what happens is, because my sons, they had the opportunity to quote unquote go to some of the good schools. I could give you an example like School of the Arts. He was only one of two black students in the class. So whenever, like last year, he taken AP calculus and there was only two black kids in AP calculus. So they don't expect for us to be in there. But whenever we do get in there, we have to understand that we're there for a reason. And that's what I installed in my sons. It's like, no, we belong here. We're not here because uh, by luck or by faith. No, we're here because we worked our way here. Does that make sense? And
That
since
makes a
we
lot of
worked our
sense.
way,
That makes,
yes, yeah,
absolutely. You want to make sure that helps to build their confidence. Like,
yeah,
don't let nobody detour you off knowing that
no,
you belong here just as they do. So it ain't no difference.
exactly,
So yes, absolutely, absolutely.
exactly. And then what he was doing, like say for example, the AP calculus, right? You in there with a lot of Asians and white students, so it's very competitive. You understand? So the teacher, what she would do is sometimes she would call out his grade in front of the whole class, and she would say, "Oh, Kareem, you got a 96 on your test. You got a 98 on your test." And she would, they didn't believe that he was able to to compete on that level. And when he left that class, he left with a B. You understand? And that class is intense. AP Calculus is intense. It's
Absolutely.
nothing. It's nothing to play with, brother. So you have to continue to motivate your kids daily. That's your job. You have to motivate them before they leave the house. You have to continue to encourage. You have to get involved. You can't just talk, but you have to walk the talk. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, that's one of the things that, what I always told my son is that I'm not expecting you to be mediocre. I'm expecting you
Yeah.
to be exceptional, right? And that was to let him know, like, you cannot let anybody lower your own your own self-esteem, right? It's self, it's yours. How you build it, you know what I'm saying? And what you build out of that, you're gonna grow immensely and very strong if you stay consistent at knowing, ain't no playing mediocre. It's I'm here for a reason, and that's what I'm here for. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times I see, from my own experience in dealing with the kids, that when I would go to the school, because I was present in those schools as well, and I see that mediocre was accepted, right? And prime example, when a teacher had told me, she say, well, your son behaves. He's not. He doesn't misbehave and this, that, and the other. I said, hold it, hold it, hold it. He ain't here to worry about behavior. He here to be taught, right? And this is
That's
when I
right.
had him in the public school. So I had to differentiate, let them know that I'm not, I'm a dad that we don't have to work on discipline and behavior issues. He's here to learn, and I'm expecting you to teach him.
That's
And
right.
some of that was a little intimidating to some of the teachers until we had those one-on-one conversations and they saw where I was coming from. So how did being in contact with those teachers as a single father, right, and being so upfront about it, how was that type of a communication?
Okay, so that's a very good question because I think with sometimes the way that others may perceive black men, especially if you want to get involved or if you are involved, they want to put this title on you that you're confrontational. They're intimidated. You understand? So if you raise your voice, now they're scared of you. I'm scared of you now. I'm intimidated. The principal need to be in here. So what
Yeah.
I've done, what I realized, when folks start doing that at an early point, early age in my son's uh, life, what I start doing is I start talking with a lower tone. I
Mhm.
changed my tone and my voice. Uh, I would go up there with the mom. You understand, as someone that can be a witness for me in case someone say I was confrontational.
Mhm.
I volunteered on a group that was called the Parent Advisory Council to the Board of Ed.
Mhm.
So I was able to be the voice at that time, of about 56,000 students. So I was
Mhm.
on the committee with 15 other parents, but the other parents, it was 15 women. I was the
Mhm.
only man on that committee, but I
Yes.
never felt like I never felt like a man because the women made me feel like a parent. So I
Mhm.
just felt like, you know what I mean? I didn't feel any different. So I was able, and the reason why I joined that committee is because I got tired of people speaking for us in the black community saying we were lazy, we were not motivated, our kids didn't want to learn. I got tired of that. So I said, you know what? Let me go back into these schools and get the voices of the black folks and then take that back to the school district and say, look, this is what we need. This is what we want. You understand? We don't
Yes.
want anyone speaking for us anymore. We want to speak for us. So
Hey,
I learned, so I just learned all of the politics, all of the, you know, a lot of stuff that's going on, and I used it to my advantage, if that makes sense. I used it to better me as a man and as a father.
that makes a lot of sense because I noticed in playing that role, like and when I say play the role, what I mean is being as present as possible and
Yeah, yeah,
involved directly. What I did notice that you do have more women that are in those situations are less comfortable for the teacher to actually talk to, no matter what situation is. If the woman is a little loud and a little obnoxious, they're able to deal with that, right? And but when it did come to me being there, yes, it's kind of crazy that we have to we have to lower. I'm gonna say it like it is. This is how I'm gonna say it. We have to lower some of the things we do just to be evenly meshed, to be able to get them to not feel so intimidated by our presence, right? And that's not to say the presence. The presence alone is intimidating because they don't know. Even if a father, sometimes I came in the room and I was just silent. Like sometimes you learn better just listening. But that even shook people up. Cause it's like who daddy is that? Or he ain't say nothing. Nah, I'm listening. I'm looking at how you do what you do, and if it's helping my kid and along these kids that's in his class, if it's helping them too. I want to see how you coordinate in your class in every situation that I possibly can. If a kid is acting up, if a kid is out of line, I want to understand how you talking to these kids to make them back on, or get them back on track, right? Because all that play a role in how easy it could be to teach a kid if you're teaching them right. So just my presence alone would be intimidating. Now, like I said, I started off with saying me having to simmer down my tone. Like you said, it's like, oh, you can't be so so authoritative, if you will, right? That's crazy how we have to, diminish or how we are just to make somebody else comfortable. I didn't like that, but I had to bite the bullet on that because for the betterment of the kid, I wanted to make sure that the teacher and I were on the same playing field and we had a mutual respect that, hey, call me, I'm here, I'm present. You ain't got to worry about this one. You just got to teach this one, if that makes sense.
No, man. I mean, we're on the same page on that, Spunk, and this is part of the reason why you and I, kind of reconnected over the years because and I say this, to the folks who are listening, Spunk is an excellent father. He's an excellent father. He's an excellent man. He stands for what I stand for. And if he didn't, I, I wouldn't waste my time on the show. You understand? Because I don't have time to play. And when you're dealing with your kids' education, that has to be number one. You understand? That cannot be, you know, you have to be involved in everything. And I know that sounds like, you say everything, and some people may say, well, how can I be involved in everything? Well, there's something that's called a PTA, Parent
Mm-hmm.
Teachers Association. You have to, that's only $10 a year. But with that $10 a year, you have the opportunity now to get involved with what's going on in the school. You have a right to vote on how the money is going to be spent. The money that's been raised, through the PTA, they can raise up to 50, $100,000 at your kid's school. But if you're not involved, then now you don't understand how that money is being spent.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That
So
makes sense.
sometimes, your kid, kids may have special needs, and you may have a vote to say, you know what, I want, $10,000 of this money from the PTA. I want that delegated into like a teacher specialist who can come in and help students on how to read. So you want to, that's why the PTA is so important because you just want to have a say. That makes sense?
That makes a lot of sense. It make you wanna have, like when I was on the board, I wanted to kind of help govern what the school needed and advocate at the same time. And the only way that I can best advocate for what the school needed is being in part of the governance of what they had going on. Now, in that process, you see a lot of stuff that's like, wait a minute, that's wasted funds. This person need to tighten up what they're doing, and this, that, and the other. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because in some of those, when it came to the public school, it's like, wait, y'all got to find another disciplinary action if these kids ain't acting right. But a lot of times they pacify some of the parents that are a little more aggressive and just putting their kid in the corner and not learning. So that bothered me. So being a part, being present, being on those boards allow you to see certain things so that you can say, hey, look, especially if you know the kid and his parents, right? That's the good thing about when you're in the community and your kid goes to a school that's where you grew up with some of these parents, you can say, hey, look, I saw a little man, he was acting a fool in class. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to verify what the teacher was saying, or, what I'm saying, we done came away from that, how we was raised, mom's partner, what I'm saying, Miss Jones, hey, look, she had permission to take me in the bathroom and tear that ass up if I was acting right, and I will get it again when moms find out. So nowadays you don't have that because you got a parent like, nobody need to touch my kid, boo, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Which again, being a part of the governance on those board on those boards allow you to see so many things where the correction on the teacher side you can advocate for, correction on the parent side you can advocate for. So that's one of the things that is I don't hear a lot of people talking about. You know what I'm saying?
See, but it's like this too, Spun. Keep this in mind too. We have a lot of excellent teachers out here that's willing to work with us and our kids. But where the problem come in at is that sometimes I think, and I can't like I don't want to speak for other people, but just from what I saw over the years, sometimes folks are expecting teachers to create like what you call a miracle. You understand? Y- You know, teaching
Yes.
starts at home first. I
Yes.
can give you an example. I have two twin sisters, right? And man, Spunk, these two young ladies, man, they're wonderful, man. They're a split image of my mom. You know, they're their kids' mother, they're the father, they're the grandfather, they're the grandmother, they're everything all in one. My two sisters, man. I mean, they're great parents, man. They remind me so much of myself. They're involved in everything them kids do when they both have two kids apiece. But they're involved in every single thing their kids do, man. They're showing up to back to school night. So they're doing all these wonderful things. And my nephew, he's also in college, in second year college at 19 years old. He's in the second year. And, you know, you, you, you see it in your kids, man. When you get involved, your kids will only be better for it. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot
You
of
know,
sense. They
and
see
then,
you
and then
care. They see you
Yeah,
care.
exactly. So whenever the teachers see that you care, then they're gonna work with you. Like for example, when my son went into first year ninth grade, I think he received a D in English, and I can remember that conversation, man, like it was yesterday. Spunk. My son had given me a call, and he said, "Dad, man, I'm receiving a D in English." And he was crying on the telephone, man, at 14 years old. And he said, "Dad, I'm not no D student. I'm not no D student." So the teacher got on the telephone and she said, okay, this is what we're going to do to help Kareem get his grade up.
Mm-hmm.
And make a long story short, he left that class with an A.
That's
But
what's up.
it took him having to go in there during lunchtime because see, what folks don't, I mean, maybe we do understand, maybe we don't understand, but you can't speak the way you write. And that was the problem that he was having. You understand? You can't
Right.
use slang, all these slang words whenever you're writing. So you have to be able to separate the two. So this
Yes.
is why he was, he would, so make a long story short, brother, he left the class with an A. But
That's what,
the teacher was willing to work with us. She just said, look, this is what your son has to do. He has to show up during lunchtime. He's not able to go out and play with whatever he's going to do, play or whatever kids are doing now. He can't do that anymore. He has
right.
to come in here during lunchtime. I said, look, this is what you must do. He showed up. He went in there during lunchtime. After school, she took her own personal time, man. Her own personal time. She was not getting paid for this. She spent like an hour each day with my son, man. Each day with my son.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? She would
Yeah.
email me and show me stuff that he was writing. She didn't get paid to do this, but she did
And
it
and
because
that's big, right? Because go ahead, go
she
ahead. I
did.
didn't mean to
She
interrupt.
did. No, 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 no. I just wanted to mention this last point, but she did that because he taken the initiative to help himself. Does that make sense? You got to
Yes,
be willing to
yes,
help
yes.
yourself. If you want others to help you, you have to help yourself.
Yep. Yeah,
So if that teacher say come in there during lunchtime, you get your ass in there during lunchtime.
that's
If
right.
she said
That's
come in
right.
there after school, you be at her door. Right when the bell rung, he was standing at her door because we had that understanding.
Yes. Yes.
One more point I want to make, man. I done this Spunk all the way from preschool all the way up to the 12th grade, right? School would start at 8:45. Sometime, some school elementary 8:40, I think, something like this, or and then on the middle school it would start at 9, and then so on and so on. But Every day my sons was at school at least 30 minutes early every single day. Every
Mm.
single day, Spunk, my kids was at school 30 minutes every day early. And people said, well, why did you get them to school early 30 minutes? Because I wanted them to play, talk, whatever you was going to do, you do that before you walk into the door. Because once you walk in that door and that bell rings, the playtime is over.
Right.
We business now. You understand? This is
That's right.
business. And if I
Right.
see that you sitting in the back of a classroom, I didn't allow my sons to sit in the back of the classroom. You sit in the front because there's nothing going on in the back. I don't want to hear
Right.
no excuse. You understand? I can't hear what's going on. I can't see. You understand? I didn't allow my boys to sit in the back of no classroom, brother. They sit in the
Right.
front. We
Now
sit in
that
the
makes
front.
sense. You know what I'm saying? That make a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? You basically setting a precedent to where that's structure. And that's when you have a father involved, being able to set up something like that, that's a trait that, again, when it comes to going to a job, he may end up being there 30 minutes early. Hey, what you doing here? Hey, look, I'm just, preparing myself, getting ready. Feel me?
That's right.
So those are qualities when a father is involved, you know what I'm saying, and lay law, right? Not not let them get away with, okay, today we're gonna go 5 minutes a little late. No, no. That consistency helps to keep the structure that you built there. Period.
I believe. I believe last year, man. I believe last year, and I know I will say this, and some people, they look like they got sour lemons in their mouth when I say this, brother. But my son, I believe last year in the 12th grade, Spunk, he was probably late only 3 times. 3 times he was late, brother. You know why? Because see, what I realized early on is that your kids are an example of the parent or parents. You understand? That's an
Yes.
example. Your kids are a reflection of us. So I always told myself as a father, whenever I take my kids to school, do I want to walk in the door with my head down because my kids are misbehaving or doing things that didn't represent me as a father and a man? You
Mhm.
understand? So
Right.
whenever I walked in them doors, I could walk in there with my head held high because I knew that my son, like when he left high school last year, and this is a public school, the school gave him $2,000, brother.
Mm. That's right.
$2,000 cash that he can go put into his bank account because they believed in him that much. You
Yeah.
understand? They
Yeah.
believed in his vision and his dream that much that he made such an impact. You understand? He made such an impact because he didn't go. I can give you another example, man. He was on the waiting list going into the school for this high school for this particular high school. He was going in there on the waiting list, right?
Mhm.
And when he actually got into school a week later, so he was a week behind everybody else. There's only 2 black kids in the room, I believe, at the time. It's just him and maybe 1 or 2 others. That's it, out of a
Yeah.
classroom of about 26, 28 kids. And when he first walked into school, like I said, he's a week behind. Do you know, man, that one teacher walked up and dropped a pack of papers on his desk? It had to be at least about maybe 40 papers. And
Mhm.
just slapped him on the desk. Didn't tell him how to do it or nothing. Just
Mm.
slapped it on the desk. See? So by them doing that, that's kind of set him up for failure. But
Right.
guess what? But guess what? He took care of that because he understood why he was there. He understood when he came in from this quote unquote low performance school, you can put whatever you want to put on that, low performing, high performing. None of that matters. It's the individual that walks in the school. Does
That's
that
right.
make sense, brother?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about all this low performing. None of that matters, man. What do you want whenever you walk into those doors?
Yes.
You understand? We both
Yes.
had a we had a vision. You understand? I
Yes.
had a vision for my sons. I knew who my sons was. So I walking in the door, I already knew exactly where my boys would be. I didn't let nobody tell me who my sons were. I knew that already. That makes sense. You have to know who your kids are, man. You can't.
Uh,
You can't look for somebody to tell you who your babies are.
that's right.
You have to know that.
Yeah. One thing you said too, man, that stands out too. It's like everything starts at home, right? If 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 the message is there that when you leave this house, you're gonna learn a lot of things. But when you're in the house, when you're in a building that's there to teach you, right? Your focus need to be in the zone of you're in a building to learn, be a sponge, and find out what you don't know and make sure you get to know it, right? So that's yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
What's
but
your take on, because you being a part of your son's life like that, you being present, right? What what would you say is some of the constraints or some of the things that stops males, black fathers, from participating in their kids' lives like that, right?
okay. Let me mention this before I say that one. Then
Go
I
ahead.
kind of missed a very important point. Is that it's very important because one thing I did, Spunk, that I mean one thing that I did that I don't know if the word is proud or, but one thing that I did, Spunk, every single day, man, all the way from like preschool all the way up to high school, is I talked to my sons every single day after school. Whether that meant that I called them on the telephone or right when they got in the house. Hey, how was your day?
Right.
How were, what was going on in this class, that class, this class? And if something to me did not make sense. See, I'm an adult. We're adults. We know what makes sense and what don't make sense.
Right.
So whenever you do deal with the school, if something doesn't make sense, we're not calling to a school or going up to the school and ready to be confrontational because that doesn't do us any good. You
Right.
understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have to be able to listen to things and know, okay, we know this about our kids already. We know that our kids are going to do X, Y, and Z. We know that they're not going to do this. Does that make sense?
That makes
So
sense.
you have to have an open communication with your kids, man. You have to continue to speak to your kids every single day and make time to ask them, how was your day? What could you have done better? Like for example, I give you a perfect example. If your kids was to come home, like if my son was to come home and he was to say, Dad, I can't do my homework. To me, that's a problem
Right.
because homework is nothing but a review of what you've done in that class.
Right. Right.
You understand? So if you can't do your homework, then that's telling me that you're playing in the class.
Hmm.
So I mean, they were always able to do their homework because they took care of their business in the classroom. So
Right.
it was just an easy transition going home. You
Right.
understand?
That's
So I
right.
didn't have I didn't have these concerns, or I didn't even have to go to teacher conference. I didn't even have to do that stuff because my sons did what they needed to do. And
Hmm.
they're not perfect. They're not perfect young men, but they handled their business because they understood that that's what I expected. You understand? And not only did I expect it, like for example, like if they got like my son last year, I think he got like what a 3.4, I believe, his first progress report. So what he did was he went down the line and he said, okay, I got an A in this class. I need to improve on this. Or if he received a B, he wrote down on the progress report, I need to improve on this. Does that make sense?
That makes
So you have
sense.
to so you have to put these report cards up around your house where your kids are able to see these things and visualize it and say, this is where I can improve. Because see, this, your kids know what they need to do at school. Your children
Yes.
know what they need to do at school.
Yes.
You don't know because you're not there all the time. So they know already. So you as the adult, you have to guide them now. That's your responsibility. There's
Mhm.
nobody else's responsibility. These schools are not set up to be a baby. These schools are not babysitting programs.
Right.
They're institution for learning.
That's right.
This is institution for learning, man. And if you're not there to learn, then now you're interrupting somebody else from being able to learn.
That's
I don't know if that makes sense or not, man. But I
no.
mean,
That makes a lot of sense. Hell yeah. Because again, just what you just said, when you got when you got kids that don't have that structure, when you don't, whether or not the father is involved and that's just not his forte, whether the father is not involved and they get away with a lot of things that they shouldn't do, right? And it goes for girls and boys. So that's unisex. That unisex. That's not, you know what I'm saying, the absence of a father, you know what I'm saying, that actually provides that structure, that discipline, that when I look at you, you know I'm serious. I ain't gotta say nothing type of attitude, right? But when we provide that structure, it's set. But for those kids that don't have that, those are interruptions, those are hiccups that the teacher has to stop teaching to be like, hey, we need to put you over here. Can you stop playing? Can you stop? So as parents, right? If we are looking at the institution to be like, hey, that's just a babysitting time for, I ain't got to deal with them. Hey, I'm straight. Some people ain't fit to be parents. Some people are not ready to be parents because of the responsibility that it deals with and the accountability that they have to have in order for their kids to be exceptional, not just mediocre. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense to me,
You know what I
Spunk.
mean?
But the thing
So
is, man, like, all right, go ahead.
So
Go
here,
ahead, brother.
here, here's now. I'm gonna move a little forward because that structure that you set up, right? If your kid is in college now, you did your thing, right? Let me hold on. I gotta give my audience is giving you a round of applause. I'm over here playing with some gadgets, right? Whatever. But but now let's move a little ahead of when the kid is at that point with going to college. That next step that I just graduated, or let's say my 12th year, at what point did you start talking about, hey, college, funding, those type of things? And we're not going, my disclaimer is we're not going to talk about any program directly, but I do want to bring out some of the obstacles that we are up against as single fathers when we're trying to get our kids into the next level of education, higher education. What kind of hiccups did you have along that way?
I don't know, like, for example, he applied, for a lot of different scholarships. And I don't want to give out any names or anything, but I just can give you an example. He applied for this one scholarship and it was like a $2,500 scholarship. And I'm still kind of disappointed about this particular scholarship just because they were only giving out 5 scholarships, and how many black students actually graduated. I can't even imagine in my mind how many students actually graduated, in this particular city, how many students actually graduated, black students, but then you would only give out 5 scholarships. That's not enough. You understand? It's not enough. And we had a lot of hiccups, man, and it still bothers me to this day because, when my son, he left, with I think he was around a 3.6 GPA. His test scores was really high. So, he got into about 15 different colleges. And he just didn't, I wanted him to stay right here in the Bay Area, but he just said, Dad, my heart, my spirit, I want to be at a HBCU. You understand? Like he knew that he wanted to be at a historic black college university because he understood that he was going to get all the support that he needs, that he wouldn't have to worry about if he struggled, and there's only, X amount of blacks in the class, is he going to get that extra support? See, so whenever you go to HBCU, everybody in that class look like you. You understand? You're learning your history. Does that
Yes,
make sense?
that makes a lot of sense. Um,
And let me just say this point here because this is a very important point. is when I walked him on that campus of Clark. So there's Clark, Spelman, and Morehouse, and you have all, and he's able to go to Morehouse as well. So that's the good thing about the HBCU, is that with those three colleges there, he's able to take classes at Morehouse. So he's able to reap that benefit as well. And there's a lot of at his school, at Clark there's 70% females,
Mm,
you know, and 30% males. But I made it clear to my son when he was there, because they like to party. Let's party, let's do this, let's do that, or whatever. But you know, uh, like I told you before, Spunk, I never smoked any weed, never drunk any alcohol, so I don't believe in these things, man. The smoking of cigarettes and all this nonsense. So I
right,
made it clear to my son, we're here on official business.
right.
You understand? We're not here to play. We're not here to do none of that. What we're here to do is to make sure that we can be the best version of who we are. So what my son said to me, Spunk, is he said, look, Dad, I want to graduate in 3 years. What does that look like? Okay, in 3 years, that means that every summer he's going to have to take 4 classes in the summertime if he's going to graduate early. You see the seed that I'm planting in his mind already.
Yes, yes,
You understand that
yes,
we're not here to play. We're here to succeed. We're here to he wants a business degree. Then he also said, Dad, I want to do a dual degree. So I want to do psychology, and I want to do a business administrator degree at the same time. But see, I say all this to say, look, Spunk, I never had to cuss my sons out. I never cussed them out. I never hit them with a closed fist. I never even spanked my sons. We shouldn't have to do that. That's why it starts at birth, if that makes sense. I don't even have to raise my voice with my son. You understand?
right. It's
And
capital
I know,
punishment.
yeah, and I know he's not my friend or anything like that, but we have such a connection where he can still come to me and he still feel like, nah, man, it's cool. This is my dad. Like, I'm coming to my dad first. You
Mm,
understand? I'm
yeah,
running some by my dad first. I'm not running it by a teacher, this, that. No, I'm going to my dad, because I
right.
understand my dad may not know everything, but he know enough, you understand, to guide me through the process. I don't know if all this stuff makes sense. I
No,
know I'm
that
just
makes a
running it.
lot of sense. No, because it's a few things. Now, I'm gonna say it like this: when I think it was, I know we into college, right? We talking about that entry
Yeah,
level, what I'm saying,
yeah.
right out there, that 12th grade year, right? One of the
Hmm.
things I was told later on, when I end up putting my son in the private school. My son's been in private school since uh, sixth grade. Sixth grade, everything was private school, right? And that was because I felt like, hey, the public school, just for me, everybody have their own perspective on how their school and their district do. But for me, I wasn't getting what I wanted out of the public school in the direction that I wanted my kid, right?
Hmm.
So it was a guy that told me once before, he said, look, find out what your kid, and this is, take a note to those that are paying attention to this, because I didn't think about this and it did help. The later it was, it still helped, right? Um,
Hmm.
if you find out what your kid likes to do most, right? Again,
That's
that's a
right.
part of knowing your kid, talking to your kid, having a great relationship with your kid, understanding your kid's skills and knowing what you're bringing forth to help hone in them skills and build upon them, right? If you
Hmm.
know what your kid wants, right, want to be, right, figure out which are the top schools that take that are there that your kid wants, right? Because let's say if you wanted to be a lawyer and Harvard was the top lawyer school, right?
Hmm.
What high schools go are recruited for Howard students, and what do they need?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
From it's almost like going in reverse. If you know your kid want to be a lawyer, find out where does those particular colleges, what pool do they pull from, right? And whatever type of school that is in a high school, find that particular high school, right? Then, if you are early in the game, right? If you early enough, let's say they grade school anywhere between fifth and sixth grade, fourth grade. It's hard to know what a kid really wants, but you can start seeing certain things, right? Then find out from what the Harvard want, right? Pick those high
Hmm.
schools, right? That
That's right.
they pull from. Then
Hmm.
where does those high school pull from for those kids, and what do they need? So when the dude told me that, it said, you know what? The light switch hit. Like, okay, I see what he did. And it made a lot of sense because it's not making it a difficult transition to get your kids in college if you're putting them on the right pathway, the right lane to going
That's right.
to where they want to go. Now,
That's
to
right.
say all that, I'm saying that to say one of the hiccups that I had, right, was the support that it took getting there. Now, I'm not, this is never to discredit the other parent, and we may do, again, like your son, my son got accepted to 15 different colleges, HBCs, California state schools, few of those. He chose Sac State, right? And it's reasons behind him choosing Sac State that I had to accept. It is what it is. He had to figure that out. He wanted that. Okay. So it's cool. But I say that to say that if I say that to say those the support mechanisms to help me guide him on that path, right? It's expensive to go to a private school. You're looking at anywhere from 20, I want to say 21 to 34,000 a year for him to go to some of the private schools that he go. And that's from sixth grade to 12th grade. Now, yes, I had some support and some financial in there. That was great. But along the journey with him going to, and I'll use this as an example, before he left his public school, he was able to go to a national youth leadership conference where the Congress people invite you to Washington, D.C. through this program. And it was 10 kids nominated at his grade school, right? It's fifth grade. That 10 kids. Out of the 10 kids, the only one who went, and I was disappointed, right? The only one who went was him, right? This is going to Washington, D.C. to literally learn leadership, see what the Congress people do, meet, network with other kids of your same age, build a network to where you know somebody from D.C., you know somebody from Ohio, Alaska, all these kids that he got to meet. It was disappointing to me that when this came about, only one kid was able to go, right? And I was like, I look for the support in the
Yeah. Whoa.
community to help. And it was like, hey, you're too late. I ain't got the funding for this. And But hey, I made it happen. But it's unfortunate that those other 9 people didn't go because then that's a whole inner community with him and them that they could have been having now, right? So I'm using a lot of different things to speak to those that are watching this and looking out, right? But I say all this to say sometimes the support that we think is there that's in our community, if you're not searching for it early enough, you don't get it, right?
I agree.
So
Great
how
point.
was support a factor into where your son is when your sons are now? The lack thereof or the support that was good?
Well, I must say, the school, the high school, I mean, they were very supportive, man. They were very supportive. I think I just say for me, I can't say for everybody else, but I do think it's more or less like on a government level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
On that government level, man, they have to do more to support all students, but in particular, Black students.
Right.
There's just not enough funding, man, when it comes to these scholarships. They're not giving out enough scholarships, and then they're not giving out enough uh, 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 especially for our black students. I still question that to this day. Where is the money? Because you can't just give 5 scholarships from one program at $2,500 a year. That's not going to cover it, especially if you have a bill of $32,000 a year. How does 2,500 cover that? So
Right.
it's an insult, man. I mean, they have to do a better job. We have
Yeah.
to begin to lobby, our mayor's office.
Yeah.
Lobby other organizations that claim that they're working with these black students. Continue to put the pressure on them, but that starts right when they get in high school. You can't start that process in the 11th or the 12th grade because by then, I mean, your transcripts are pretty much kind of set in stone in the 11th grade. So it must start in the ninth grade. Does
Right.
that make sense?
That
You
makes a
have
lot
to
of
start
sense.
this. You got to start this college thing in the ninth grade. You have to begin to look at scholarships in the ninth grade and see
Yeah.
what's out there. You
Yeah.
know,
And
it's an
I
old.
would go so far to say go earlier because and because yes, you have to be a certain age
Yeah,
to start applying for them. But
yeah,
one of the things that I always thought about was even in the sixth grade, seventh
mhm,
and eighth grade, what program again, keeping in mind the analogy that my older guy told me about, hey, start from the college to the high school, then to the grade school. It was more like, okay, apply for or get into programs that are going to guarantee some type of funding. If your kid likes to be in media and the school has some type of media program, get them
mhm.
involved so that they can be noticed. They can get the publicity for the school or somebody who sees them like, okay, this kid he got the radio voice or he knows what he's doing. Let me here's an internship. I'm gonna put you in where it's you won't get paid for the summer, but I can guarantee you that I'll give you $5,000 when you go to college.
No, I agree, man, 100% with that, Spunk. I do. Like I said, I can only speak for me. I can only tell you what worked for me. Now, somebody else may say on this broadcast, hey, man, that guy sounds like a fool. I might sound like a fool, but that that's what worked for me. So what worked for me may not work for everybody else. You understand, Spunk? We can only tell you, like your son is at Sac State, my son, and then I have another son that actually went over, he went to a whole nother country and was able to, he went to a performing art college, but that's another story. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, the thing is, Spunk, man, is that we as parents, now I'm not talking just as fathers, but as parents, we have to take a deeper look at ourselves. And we have to really kind of check ourselves sometime. And I'm not saying this, I don't, like I say, Spunk, I don't know, but for me, I'm just saying for me, and some people are not going to like it. I'm going to use the analogy again. Some people may have a sour a sour lemon in their mouth when I say it. You
Exactly.
know, but but the thing is, brother, is that I don't understand how people can smoke weed with their kids in the house. And I'm
Right.
just telling you, for me, I'm just saying for me, I
Right.
could never smoke any weed in front of my sons, brother. I could never put a can of beer up to my mouth in front of my sons. You understand? Like
Right.
I just couldn't do it. And the reason why I never wanted to expose my sons to that spot. We both grew up in the same community, which was drug infested,
Mm-hmm.
full of violence, nothing but violence. It was drugs, it was gang violence, it was prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So
Yeah.
all we saw was just negativity. So I always knew from a little boy, just watching my mom do all of these things, I wanted to be somebody that was positive. I
Right.
didn't want to, I didn't want to, I didn't want to be that image of anything that was negative to my sons, man. And I'm not perfect by far, brother. I mean, I don't, I think that I should share this with you because I don't want to come off as a saint. I did some things that I'm not proud of, as far as, with the child mom, because I didn't really, like early on, like I didn't really understand certain things. So I would holler at her, I would
Mm-hmm.
scream because I wanted her to get more involved, and she wasn't living up to the kind of parent that I thought she should be. And I was in the house, I was hollering, I was screaming at her. I was, I pushed her. You understand? So these are things that I'm not proud of, brother, as a man.
Right,
But
right.
I'm willing to step up to the plate and tell everybody who's listening or anybody who will listen, I did stupid shit like that. You
Hmm.
understand? And I'm not
Yeah.
proud of that, brother. And I'm able to own that. But I did that because I was frustrated, that she wouldn't wake up in the morning and support me the way she should have. But I say all that to say that I love her. We still have a great relationship now. I'm able to speak to her. She's able to speak to me. She's an excellent mom. Excellent, she's an excellent mom in her own way, but I can't take all of the credit. Does that make sense? I'm not
No,
here
no,
to
that
take
makes a
all the
lot of
credit.
sense. That's a
She
lot of
helped. She,
sense.
yeah, she did her part. She did her part. She, was an excellent mother. She did the best she could. I did the best I could. And
Yes.
it's not one person taking 80% of the credit or 100% of the credit. So I don't want to come off like that.
Right.
Let me give you something, man. I came up with this, I don't know if you want to call it a quote, uh, or a saying, but I came up with this funk, and it's basically, this is how I live my life, man. Is what is the most important pieces to a puzzle? It's every piece, because without one piece, you can't complete the puzzle.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That make a lot of sense.
It's
Make a
many
lot of sense.
pieces to a puzzle, Spunk. We all have to do our part, and that's what I installed in my sons. I have a part as a father. You understand? But
Yeah.
the most important piece to that puzzle is your kids' piece, brother. They have to know that this is their education. You have to fight for it. You can't. There's not a second that you can walk into a school and play,
Hmm.
because other cultures are not going in there. They're not there to play. They're not there to talk to you. They're not there to play and do all this silly stuff. You understand? So all that starts at home. That's how my boys were able to get to college, Funk, because I started everything at home. You
That's right.
understand?
That's right. That's right. That you laid the foundation, right? And so here, let me ask this: for a father who is trying to pull it together, right? Don't have the best communication with his significant other, his baby mama, his wife, his whatever, right? Don't have the best communication and making things cordial. How would that brother go about you know doing the best he can with that kid under them situations? What would you suggest or recommend for him or her to do? When we talk about men, young men, what would you suggest him to do if he don't have the right communication with the mother around being, producing a kid in such manner?
I mean, for me, Spunk, I like I said, I can only speak for me. But if there's any brothers like that listening now, the best advice I can give you is you have to. What I could just I give it to you as far as, like, for me, Spunk. Not having my father in my life the way that he should have been in my life. When I don't know, when I was about 8 years old, I used to bang my head on the wall because I wanted a father that bad. I wanted my father to be involved in my life. I wanted him to support me. I wanted him to love me. It just, it never really happened like that, man. So, when I was around 12 or 13 years old, I told myself that I'm going to become the father that I never had. Does
Right.
that make sense? So a lot of these black brothers, we all have some of the same stories. I mean, I don't know if you shared your story with your father, Spunk, but yours is kind of similar to that, as well. You have some great memories of your father. Unfortunately, you'll share your story, but you know, uh, so many of us, Spunk, that grew up in that neighborhood, brother, we didn't have fathers. So that means the streets had to raise us.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That
The
makes a
streets,
lot of
or
sense.
whoever it is, the gang members and all that. So what I would tell a young man is, you have to soul search yourself first. Look deep down into your soul and ask yourself, what kind of man am I? What kind of reflection do I want to be? So if that young man has a daughter, do I want my daughter to date a thug? Do I
Hmm.
want them to date a bum, a loser? what kind of man will I see my my daughter with? Does that make sense? And that
Yes, sir.
man that you see your daughter hopefully marrying one day, are you a reflection of that man?
That's
You
right.
understand?
That's
Because if
right.
you're not a reflection of that man, you can't expect her to go get a professional man, like you would say, professional dad. How is she gonna go get a professional man when you walking around her smelling like marijuana?
Right.
When you walking around her with your pants down there to your ankle?
Hmm.
You understand? And you 45 years old, you 40 years old, or or whatever it is. You understand it? So you have to set that example.
Yes.
Does that make sense? You
That
have
makes
to
a lot
set
of
that.
sense.
So even if you and the mom is not getting along, you have a part that you have to do as a man. You have to own that part. You understand? And your part is to be the best that you can be,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best that you can be. It don't take a whole lot of money to pick your kid up and walk to a park.
Right.
You understand? So
Right.
I mean, hey brother, I'm always here. You're here. We can always link up with these kind of brothers. So if they need our support, I know you won't. I mean, I know you're more than willing to do it. I'm more than willing to do it.
Right.
You know, you have a phone number, I guess, or whatever it may be. I'm willing to support young brothers that want to be good fathers. I'm
Absolutely.
willing to guide them through the process because it's not a. I can't just explain this in 2 minutes. You
Right.
understand?
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to kind of speak to brothers and see where they're at and meet
Yes.
them where they're at.
Yes. Yeah.
That makes sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Like what I would add to that too is that even it ain't like it used to be, but I will say this: even you can get if you observe people, right? This is what I would tell a young brother right now in this day and age, right? With
Shalom.
all the quick stuff that they need and all the influences that they have, find out who your true friend is. You know what I'm saying? Find out whoever you have as a mentor, find out what direction do they see you going, right? Again, yes, it's some soul searching that you have to do for yourself, but at some point, you still trying to figure it out. If your environment is just filled with some just chaotic, you know what I'm saying? Just chaos, right?
Yeah.
There's always somebody who makes more sense than the other, right? And that's one of the things that I took away from not having my father, but being raised by older men, right? A little bit older than me, some much older than me, but like I said, it ain't, the times are different right now. You got young kids, influenced by other young kids, just one age different, two age different, and they don't want to listen to the older folks, right? But
Yeah.
if you can capture something where it instinctively, like, this person means me well, right? Take time to just sit and listen. Ask a OG who's, if he's still on the block, if he's still on the block out there at 45, 50, obviously it ain't did nothing for him, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If he ain't on the block no more, he done transition from the game to the work. Don't feel intimidated to ask, man, what made you change? You know what I'm saying? Ask. Because if you don't know, you'll never know. If you don't ask, you will never know. But keep in mind, and this is one thing I would say to that in giving a suggestion, and it goes along with what you just said. Keep in mind, you're going to have a kid one day. And if you in and out of jail, you knowing how the situation is. What you got pimps, you got players, suckers, you got homosexuals, all that in the pen, right? If you're not there to raise your kid, one of them gonna get out and raise your kid. Which one you want? Either you want them out to raise your kid, or you want to be out there to provide that structure and that guidance, right? And if you look at it from that perspective, it's like, okay, I gotta be the image that I want my kid to be, right? So you always gotta better
Absolutely.
yourself, but you do have to align yourself with people who are, you know what I'm saying, a little higher than you. And when I ain't no man above no man. I don't care. It ain't like that. But people who have a little more education or people who have a little more respect and sense, whatever, however you look at it, be willing to say how you do that, right? And you ain't got to
That's
say
right.
it no other way but how you do it.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
universal language. How did you do that? Right? And getting that understanding, it'll make things, it'll enlighten you to want to do better or to transition yourself in a better situation where you ain't got to look over your shoulder from the cat you done, got into it with. You ain't trying to do that. You can build a better communication with raising your kid, since the kid should be the focal point of a broken relationship, right? You ain't worried about her, she ain't worried about you if y'all completely done, right? And take those nuggets and be the best father you can be. But I also add to this, just be present. Because when you see what your kid is doing, what you see what your kids is influenced by, it's gonna make you say, wait a minute, hold on. If this is right, okay, I'm with my son or my daughter being a part of that. If this is wrong, nah. We ain't about to be raised like that. I don't want her around that type of stuff. I'm not a part of that stuff, or I cut that stuff out of my life so that it wouldn't influence my kid to be that way at an early age. Because either
I'm,
you
I'm,
a productive person or you gonna raise a killer, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I, I'm glad that you said that, Spunk, because one thing that I used to do is I never brought my sons around anybody that smoked cigarettes, weed, drinking. I never brought my sons around that because I didn't do it. I never brought people like that into my house. Does that make sense?
That makes
I
sense.
didn't I didn't do that, Spunk. I didn't do it because I wasn't involved in that. So why would I go take my son somewhere to a party where people are drinking and smoking if they never seen their father do it?
Right.
So what you just said, it makes perfect sense, man. I mean, like I say, Spunk, there's some people that may disagree, they may agree. I don't know. I will continue to tell you, this is what worked for me.
Right.
You understand? And that's what I respect. And that's what I respect about you, Spunk, is that me and you share a lot of the same values. And where we connect at and where we're brothers, because I believe you my brother. And where we're
Absolutely.
brothers at is this whole father thing.
Yes.
You understand that we
Right.
both can stand grounded on these issues when it comes to fathers and how we can become better fathers. And
Yeah.
like you said early on, you don't see yourself as a professional father yet. I don't see myself as a professional father yet. We all have growing that that we can do. But
Right.
opening up conversations like this just help, earn, sharpen,
Yes.
earn, right?
Yes. That's what's up. That's what's up. All right, man. So look, man, I love the conversation, man, and I hope this helps somebody. Hey, Q Love, do you have any last words you want to give, to the people out there that's listening or that will be listening and following the podcast?
What did you say, Spunk?
I said, do you have any last words you want to put out there before we come to a close for the people that's going to be listening to the podcast or the people who are going to be watching
Uh,
the show?
yeah, I mean, first of all, man, let me just say thank you to you, Spunk. Thank you, man, for giving me this format, man, for me to be able to speak. And you, you know, Spunk, I always admired you. I respect you as a man, as a father. I love you. I think you know that already.
Absolutely. I got
Uh,
you. Yes.
and to the listeners, you know what I mean? None of us, can you hear me, Spunk?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I wanted to say none of us are perfect parents. It doesn't come with instructions. But if we strive to do our very best, because our kids are watching us, man, everything we do, they're watching. So, they're, they're listening, but maybe 90% of the time, 100% of the time, they're watching what we do. So we can't just be talkers. We have to be doers. I mean, that's all I want to say, brother. I mean, I leave it on that. We got to
That's what's up. That's what's up, man.
be
And
doers.
like I always say,
We
man,
can't just be talkers.
that's right. Like I always say, man, it's never about changing the narrative of Black fathers. We out here, we exist. Some of y'all just ain't listening, but a lot of us ain't talking loud enough. So with that being said, man, Q Love, I salute. I appreciate you, brother. I love you, and we'll talk again, huh? All right, brother.
Thank you, bro.